Hi everyone, I'm the Vice President of the Linguistics Society, İlayda Akkaya, and welcome to this semester's first linguistic workshop. Today our guest is Yağmur Sağ-Parvardeh, presenting her work, Cardinality and Indefiniteness. As a Linguistics Society, we would all like to thank her again for accepting our invitation. I would like to pass the word to her.
Thank you. Öncelikle ben bir Türkçe olarak başlamak istemiştim ama Türkçe bilmeyen var mı aramızda? Tamam, yani bir genel olarak samimi bir şekilde kendi dilimizde teşekkür etmek istedim. Sonra nasıl?
Devam edebilirsiniz, bizim için sıkıntı yok. İngilizce.
Yok. Konuşmayı İngilizce yapmak istiyorum çünkü Türkçe yapabileceğimi zannetmiyorum ama öncelikle herkese teşekkür etmek istedim beni davet ettiğiniz için. Yaklaşık 1 saatlik bir konuşma ayarladım ama çok fazla sıkmamak adına biraz kısa da kesmeye çalışabilirim. Sonra da soru cevap kısmında tartışabiliriz ama herhangi bir soru olursa, clarification gerekirse lütfen çekinmeyin, sorun. Yani o noktada anlaşılmasını tercih edebilirim. O yüzden benim için durdurulmak mümkün yani. O zaman başlıyorum ben. Önce paylaşmam gerekiyor. Bir saniye.
Evet hocam, şu an görünüyor slaytlarınız.
Görünüyor. Tamam, peki, güzel. Okay, so I'm starting. So what is this talk about? So it's about numeral constructions and their interpretations cross-linguistically. So first of all, it's cross-linguistically the case that indefiniteness is freely available for numeral constructions, which display a robust pattern of indefiniteness. So in other words, they're pretty indefinite without requiring an article with them, even in languages that strictly disallow like nouns, bare nouns in argument positions without an article, like for example, French. But definiteness in all languages, regardless whether they have overt articles or they are articuleless languages, definiteness in numeral constructions requires some overt markers. If a language has an overt definite article, so numeral constructions can be definite by the use of the definite article. So for example, English and French. But if a language lacks overt definite article like Russian, Mandarin, or Hindi, numeral constructions in these languages typically require alternative markers like demonstratives to convey a definite interpretation in these languages. So the general idea about numeral constructions due to Link 1983 is that they are predicative expressions. Predicative meaning that they're ET type expressions, and they default to existential interpretation when we use numeral constructions in argument positions. And this is the case when there is no overt determiner article accompanying them. So this is like the generally accepted view for the semantics of numeral constructions out there. So the puzzling piece for me is that if numeral constructions are predicative type expressions, meaning they denote properties, they're ET type expressions, then the fact that they're resistant to definiteness, specifically in those languages that lack overt articles like Russian, Mandarin, Hindi, is puzzling. Why? Because those languages also allow their nouns without an article to freely occupy an argument position within a structure. And in that case, they can also freely allow definite interpretations. So this has been assumed to be possible through a missionary called covert type shifting, covert iota type shifting. And for now, consider this iota operator as some sort of covert definite article, like a covert version of the English the. But we are going to change that view later, but just for now, assume that there is a silent article in those languages that is assumed to turn nouns into definite expressions. But if we consider this, it's not obvious why this missionary is not available for numeral constructions in articuleless languages. as opposed to what happens with their nouns. And this is puzzling because we see that in languages like English, where with overt articles, definiteness is possible with numeral constructions with the use of an overt definite article. So we can say the two books in those languages, but when we say two books in Russian, for example, it is not possible to interpret it as the two books. Okay, so this is a puzzling piece for me. And I will argue that numeral constructions are in fact argumental expressions, not predicative. And I will argue that the indefiniteness of numeral constructions is, it comes from a cardinal head, which typically surfaces covertly in languages, but I will show you today that this head can also have an overt exponent in some languages, and Turkish is one of them. In fact, my analysis will center around Turkish numeral constructions, and we all know that it is articleless. We do not have a definite article, and we have an optional classifier, tane. So I'll be focusing on tane today. And the analysis is supported by data from Farsi and Western Armenian. And if we have time and if you're not bored, we can talk about it at the end. So just a little heads up, this analysis has recently been accepted in the Journal of Natural Language and Linguistic Theory. So if you're interested, the preprint version is available for further details. Okay. So why Turkish numeral constructions for this cross-linguistic puzzle of definiteness versus indefiniteness of numeral constructions that I talked about? To understand that, let's look at the general form of numeral constructions. So if you look at English type languages, we see that these languages have a systematic number marking system on their nouns. So there is a singular form book versus plural form books, for example. And numeral constructions in this type of languages also mark this difference. So if you have the numeral 1, the noun appears in the singular form. And if you have a numeral other than 1, then the noun appears in the plural form in these languages. And also numerals in English type languages directly combine with count nouns. So we can say 2 books, while if you have a mass noun, then you would need some intervening element between the numeral and the noun. And for example, in English, this could be exemplified with 3 drops of water. So you cannot drop drops here to mean to convey the same interpretation. On the other hand, there's this Mandarin type languages where there is no systematic number marking system available for nouns. So the unmarked form of the noun is used for reference to both singular and plural entities in these languages. In fact, they have a plural marker, but it has a very restricted use compared to the plural marker of English, for example. And numeral constructions in these languages use this unmarked form of the noun all the time with all numerals, and they obligatorily involve an intervening element with ontologically count or mass nouns. So it doesn't matter for what type of a noun you use in numeral constructions. In these languages, there is always this intervening element between the noun and the numeral, and this is known in the literature as classifier. So if we now look at Turkish, Turkish has a systematic number marking system, and in that respect, it's very similar to English. We have the singular kitap and the plural kitaplar. But differently from English type languages, our numeral constructions do not mark this difference, right? We always use the singular form of the noun with all numerals. And if I say, for example, bir kitap, it's kitap. And if I use iki, and I cannot say kitaplar, it's still in the singular form. But also, differently from English type languages, again, we have this element between the numeral and the noun, which is tane. And but it's optional, right? We can both use it and not use it. And this is also known in the literature as a classifier. So classifier is this general term for the elements that come between noun and specifically a count noun and the numeral. in the literature. Okay. So one crucial difference, one crucial thing that we have to pay attention about tane is that tane is selected for the count nouns. Okay, you cannot use them, use it with mass noun unless you coerce the interpretation of the mass noun into a count one. So, for example, to be able to count a body of water, we need to say 2 drops of water as in English. So we need to say iki damla su. But if you say iki su, you coerce it into a count use in the sense that you're actually counting the containers that the water comes in. For example, 2 bottles of water. And the same with tane. If I say iki tane su, again, like I am imagining some containers and counting these containers for water. So tane in that sense is different from intervening elements like damla, which actually really do the counting for mass nouns, while tane and just the numeral are sensitive to the count sense of the noun. So, but the key observation that I'll be focusing on today is Turkish numeral constructions have an exceptional behavior within this cross-linguistic picture that I've been talking about regarding definiteness and indefiniteness of numeral constructions. So in the absence of tane, I noticed that numeral constructions can be both definite and indefinite, while also as observed in the literature earlier, numeral constructions with tane can only be indefinite. So let's have a look at this with an example, but we will discuss this later in more detail. So I'm reading the Turkish example now. Polis 3 tane hemşirenin ölümünü araştırıyor. Edinilen bilgilere göre 3 kadının 50 yaşlarda olduğu tahmin ediliyor. So this is okay. I can also say this with a demonstrative. I can say bu 3 tane kadının 50 yaşlarda olduğu tahmin ediliyor. But if I use tane without the demonstrative, it sounds very bad. Polis 3 tane hemşirenin ölümünü araştırıyor. Edinilen bilgilere göre 3 tane kadının 50'li yaşlarda olduğu tahmin ediliyor. So with the use of tane, it kind of like feels like I'm talking about 2 separate women here, the one besides the ones that were killed. So this interpretation is that shows us the difference between numeral constructions with tane and without tane. While with tane, I can refer back to the previously introduced female nurses, but when I have tane, I'm kind of forced to refer to separate women here. But both forms are okay with the demonstrative boom in these cases. Okay. So my challenge is, so the goal is to understand how counting works in Turkish and what role this item tane plays in this, and how the presence and absence of tane affect interpretation, and this contributes to this overall picture of indefiniteness versus definiteness of numeral constructions, and like how Turkish becomes exceptional all of a sudden. Just to remind you that the cross-linguistic picture is numeral constructions without a demonstrative or a definite article do not want to refer to a previously introduced item. So if this was like any other language, you would expect always to have the demonstrative here or a definite article. Or if the language doesn't have the definite article, the numeral construction in this form would not be able to refer back to the previously introduced nurses. So Turkish is exceptional because at least with one form, the one without tane allows this anaphoric connection to the previously introduced nurses here. Okay, so the first step in understanding the puzzle and solving it is to compare tane with obligatory classifiers of Chinese type languages first and see whether they're the same thing. For that, I would like to introduce you to like a quick take on the nominal semantics in the literature. So we are considering that individuals are structured within a mereological structure, which looks like this figure here. So imagine that we have three individuals in our domain, a pumpkin, a witch figure, and perhaps a ghost. And we are considering that each of them as atomic individuals. And then we are also considering that these individuals can be summed. And these summed individuals are pluralities. Okay, so we have atomic individuals and pluralities within a mereological structure. So remember I told you that nouns are predicative, right? This means that they denote sets of individuals. Their interpretation is a set, and this set involves individuals in them. So imagine a singular noun like thing. So the idea is that a singular noun denotes a set of atomic entities in it, atomic individuals. But if you pluralize a noun, then you not only refer to the atomic entities, but also all of the pluralities created out of those atomic entities. So the entire mereological structure here would be involved in the denotation of a plural noun. So when it comes to numeral constructions, what we do is that when we say one thing, we just like count the atomic entities and collect them in the set in a set again. But the idea that belongs to Ion and Matuszewski for counting with numerals other than one looks like this. So counting requires atomic sets. So the numeral 2 takes a singular noun thing, which denotes an atomic property like this, and then creates some individuals out of the atomic individuals within that set. And those some individuals have two parts in them because your numeral is 2. But this is how it works in Turkish, like we say two thing, right? But languages like English says two things. So according to Ion and Matuszewski, this plural marking is just like added on top of the numeral construction two thing to mark the fact that the individuals inside the set are plurals, not atomic individuals. So it's just a marker of plurality of the entire numeral construction rather than the plurality of the noun thing. It's the noun that combines with the numeral instead. So I'll be following this view of numeral constructions from now on. So if we go back to Mandarin type numeral constructions, a widely accepted view is that all nouns in those languages are they have some sort of a denotation that is deficient for counting. So in other words, they need a fixing mechanism which is provided by classifiers. So let's have a look at this. So remember that there is no systematic number marking in Mandarin type languages. So we don't see the singular versus plural marking in a systematic way. And also the idea is that there is no systematic distinction between count and mass nouns in these languages. So this is the opposite of languages like English. So what people have claimed is that a singular or an unmarked form of a noun, as opposed to the version in English, would always denote a set that is neutral, that in the sense that it involves both the atomic entities and the pluralities created out of these entities within the same set. That's why these type of languages don't differentiate between singular and plural marking, because the unmarked form itself can refer to both singular entities and plural entities at the same time. What a classifier does in these languages is just like take out the atomic entities from this number neutral set, so that now that it's ready for counting. Remember the counting view that we adopted says that counting requires an atomic set, not a number neutral set or not a plural set. So it has to be a system is required to create an atomic set out of a number neutral set in this type of languages. And the idea is that this is done by classifiers. So remember I said that in Mandarin and similar languages, all nouns are mass or mass-like because there's no count-mass distinction. So people have claimed that, in fact, all nouns in these languages are kind terms. So I'm going to talk about kind terms soon, but for example, Kirke has argued that classifiers just take a kind term and return the atomic like instances of the kind, the actual objects that that instantiate a kind, to fix the type mismatch based on the view that counting operates on the predicative meanings of nouns. So kinds are not predicative, but counting requires predicative meanings of nouns. So classifiers are some sort of type fixing mechanism for that. Krivka has argued that classifiers also take kind terms, but measure in terms of cardinality, the number of specimens instantiating a kind. Okay. So I would like to talk about what happens in Turkish now. So the Turkish classifier, tane, is similar to classifiers that we see in Mandarin-like languages, only in that like the Turkish tane can appear between numeral and the count noun, right? If you look at English, you only see this intervening element happening with a mass noun. So you have to say 2 drops of water, but there is nothing that you can use even optionally in English between 2 books, 2 and books. But in Turkish, we have tane for that. So tane in that sense is similar to Mandarin type classifiers, because Mandarin type classifiers, although obligatorily occur between a numeral and an ontologically count noun, meaning that the ones that we intuitively think should be count, still requires an intervening element in these languages. But what is different between tane and the classifiers of those languages is that tane is optional, and optionality is important that we need to take into account. Optionality versus being obligatory with a word construction is something important that we have to consider. Okay. So the question is, despite this difference, is it possible for us to analyze tane similar to like what people claim for Mandarin type classifiers, right? Like some type fixing mechanism, some mechanism that helps counting to happen. Okay, so in my earlier work, I claimed that Turkish nouns align with English nouns. So they are not like Mandarin type nouns where we do not see number sensitivity. So remember that in Mandarin, an unmarked noun, a singular form of the noun, is number neutral, meaning that it can refer to singular entities and it can refer to plural entities. But I claimed that Turkish is not like that. Turkish is just like similar to English in that the singular form denotes a set of atomic entities, while the plural form denotes the entire mereological structure, including the atomic entities and their pluralities. Also, I mentioned kind terms, right? People talked about kind terms when they analyze Mandarin type of numeral constructions. So let's have a look at this. So in Turkish, both plurals and the singular form of the noun, which I also call unmarked meaning there is no more form, the number marking on the noun, like kitap. We know that in Turkish, both forms have kind reference. So, for example, 7 shows that. We can say dinozorlar 250 milyon yıl önce evrimleşmiştir. I can also say the same thing by dropping the plural marking on dinosaur. And if you look at the translations into English, you will see that the same also is the case in English. You can use the singular form of the noun to refer to the dinosaur kind, saying the dinosaur, or you can refer to the dinosaur kind by using the bare plural form of the noun, like dinosaurs. Okay. So how did people analyze kind terms? So kind terms have been considered. I just want you to focus on here, the part that I'm highlighting right now. So take the plural kind reference, dinozorlar. So people claim that a noun like a plural noun like dinozorlar denotes a number neutral set, but they can be turned into kind terms by this operator called down operator, which the role of this operator is just like to pick out the maximal plurality within the set and return it as an individual, and think about this as this individual independent of our world as an abstract entity. In other words, when we say the dinozorlar and when we refer to the kind itself, what we do is that we consider the totality of those dinosaurs that existed at some point and then consider them as some sort of abstract entity. So this is what plural kind reference means, basically. And one thing that is crucial for plural kind terms is that from the kind term that you just created with this down operator, you can always go back to the property that you started with to begin with. In other words, there is this other operator that applies to a plural kind that will give you back the set of singular and plural object level dinosaurs, the real dinosaurs that existed at some point, and these dinosaurs are just like somehow associated with the abstract dinosaur kind that we are thinking about, right? Okay, so there is also singular kind reference, but this seems to have a different nature than plural kind reference. So Dayal drew a distinction between the two. So the way I explain plural kinds is must have shown you that it is derived from a property, from a set. We derived it with this down operator. It wasn't immediately available for a plural noun. But singular kinds are different. So Dayal claimed that they are primitive entities. In other words, when you use the singular form of the noun to talk about a kind, you are directly referring to a kind. And when you're doing that, you're considering kinds within a taxonomic hierarchy, as I show in this figure here. So, for example, when we say köpek, we consider within a hierarchical classification, which köpek is a subkind of mammals, and there are other subkinds of mammals like lion, like cat, etc. But the idea is that when we refer to the dog kind by using the singular form of the noun, we are referring to this entity directly within a hierarchy. So that's the difference between the two. One, with plural kinds, you're deriving the kind reference through the totality of the real object level entities that instantiate a kind, while with the singular form, you're directly referring to that abstract entity within a taxonomic hierarchy. There is this analogy with group terms versus pluralities here. So consider, for example, the players live in different cities. Here you have a plurality, and such plurality allows a distributivity into each player that is part of the players, the plurality, or attacked each other. The team members attacked each other could be a grammatical sentence. However, you cannot do the same thing with a group term. So the team, which is a group term, doesn't allow, at least in English, distributivity over the members of the team. So you cannot say the team lives in different cities or the team attacked each other. So in other words, the definite plural terms and group terms are associated with the same set of entities. So when we say the players and the team, we are actually considering both of them as associated with players and their pluralities, right? A set that is inclusive of both atoms and their sums, but their relation to these entities differ. So similarly, plural and singular kind difference has been considered analogously. So they're conceptually associated with the same set of object level entities. So when you say dogs or the dog kind, you're considering dogs, the totality of dogs, each individual dog and their pluralities, right? But plural kinds have these entities as their parts, while singular kinds have them as their members. Okay. So I followed Dayal's analysis for Turkish. So I said that Turkish singular nouns, this is what Dayal claimed for English singular nouns. They are ambiguous between ordinary object level interpretation and a taxonomic interpretation. In other words, a kind level interpretation. So when we say köpek, we can be referring to actual dog individuals, or alternatively, we can refer to some dog kind within a taxonomic hierarchy. We might be referring to the entire dog kind, or we might be referring to its subkinds like bulldog, like poodle, etc. And which level of interpretation we are using depends on the context. Okay. Therefore, a singular noun in Turkish can be a definite singular at the ordinary object level. When I say köpek, if I do this covert iota type shifting, which does the same thing as what English definite article does, but only covertly, then I can refer to a familiar unique dog like Fido, right? Alternatively, if I'm using the kind sense of the noun, then I might be referring to the unique familiar dog kind. So in Dial's analysis, singular kind terms are like group terms, right? So they hold a membership relation with the object level specimens conceptually, and they differ from plural kind terms in not allowing type shifting to sets of object level entities. So that's why we have this difference between singular and plural kind terms. So for example, if I want to talk about the cat kind in general, that they can attack each other, I have to use the plural form. So I have to say kediler birbirine saldırır, but I cannot say kedi birbirine saldırır to refer to the cat kind again. So here the plural kind is possible because also in English, this is also the case in English, because plural kinds have the individual cats, the actual cats as their parts. But the singular one is like group term. And as we have seen, we couldn't say the team attacked each other earlier. So similarly here, for the same reason, we cannot say the cat attacks each other. Okay, so why did we talk about all these differences? Because remember when I said that classifiers of Mandarin type languages have been analyzed as some sort of fixing mechanism, people had claimed that the nouns in those languages are always kind terms, and a classifier takes a kind term and returns the object level entities, the ones that are atomic, so that a numeral can count them. This type of mechanism requires the noun to allow this type shifting to happen. But as we have seen, the fact that we can say cats attack each other as opposed to cat attacks each other shows us that a singular form of the noun, a singular kind term, does not allow access to the object level cats so that you can distribute over them with each other, but a plural noun does. So the fact that I discussed this relates to the view that tane cannot be taking a singular kind term and then giving us atomic entities that belong to this kind term, because singular kind terms do not allow that type of type shifting or fixing. Therefore, our tane cannot be doing the same thing as what Mandarin classifiers are doing or have been claimed to be doing. So in fact, I claimed earlier that whenever we say iki kitap, kitap is not a kind term, it's just like regular atomic property. Remember, the claim is that singular nouns in Turkish are ambiguous between being like a regular singular property and a kind term. So here I'm saying that whenever a numeral is combining with a singular noun, it doesn't take its kind sense, but it takes its object level interpretation. And there is no need for a type fixing mechanism here, unlike what happens with Mandarin type languages. So the difference between English and Turkish numeral constructions, in one case you say iki kitap, in the other case you say two books, is just the fact that Iron and Matishansky claimed this, that English one involves plural agreement, while Turkish one doesn't involve plural agreement. That's the only difference between the two. So we have just answered the fact that the question that tane cannot be like Mandarin type classifiers. So is it possible that tane can have anything to do with the counting of mass nouns? Is just another question that comes to mind. So I will quickly show you that's not the case also. Like we have seen that tane is selective for the count sense of the noun. When you say iki tane su, you have to coerce it into a container, count sense of the water, which comes in containers, right? So it doesn't do counting with mass nouns. But it's also worth mentioning that Turkish has this count-mass distinction at the grammatical level. We have, for example, quantifiers that are sensitive to whether you're using a count noun or a mass noun, like birkaç versus biraz. But it's been known for Mandarin type languages that such kind of distinction doesn't exist. You do not see a quantifier that is sensitive to count or mass nouns in such type of languages. So people have claimed that there is no count mass distinction at the grammatical level in these languages. But Turkish doesn't seem to be like that. Turkish seems to be more on the English side when it comes to that. Okay. So now I would like to conclude that tane doesn't have a type fixing mechanism. It doesn't take some deficient noun, either as a kind term or a mass noun, and try to fix it so that the numeral can count it. It's not like that. Tane doesn't seem to have this role. Therefore, I analyze tane as a distinct category from obligatory classifiers in Mandarin type languages. Here is the analysis. So Scontris has claimed that numeral constructions universally bear a cardinal head. And this head denotes a counting function. It denotes the cardinality measure function, in other words. So when we say, for example, 2 kilo elma, we measure it, but with respect to the weight dimension, right? So here the idea is that there is the same thing happening with counting. So when we say 2 elma, we are actually having this either covert or overt version of this measure term between the numeral and the noun that does the measurement with respect to cardinality instead. So since this claim has come out based on English type languages, like the idea is that the cardinal head is covert. But if you look at Turkish, we see that there's also an overt version of this head, which I analyze as tane. And that's why we see this this optionality of tane, because Turkish has both a covert cardinal head as in English, but also an overt one, which is tane. So tane is just like a cardinality measure term. It's a cardinal head. So what does the cardinal head? You can ignore all the formalisms here. I just put it in case you're interested, but you can just look at the figures here again. The cardinal head takes a singular noun and a numeral, and the numeral just refers to a number. And if it's 2, it refers to the number 2. And the singular noun denotes an atomic set like this, a set with singular individuals in it. And what cardinal does is that to give us back a set with pluralities instead, and pluralities will have 2 atomic parts in them, each plurality. So this is what cardinal head does. Basically, it does the counting for us. Okay. So if we consider Mandarin type languages, then besides their classifier, they must have a cardinal head as well, right? If this is a universally required piece of counting, there are 2 possibilities here. We could either consider that there's a separate cardinal head within their structure above the classifier projection. Alternatively, we could consider that the cardinality function, that meaning, is also within the semantics of the classifier. So their classifiers might have 2 roles. One is like fixing the noun so that it's available for counting, and as well as the counting itself. So both possibilities are available. You know, we cannot rule out one over the other because there's evidence for both, and I can discuss this later. Therefore, I will just leave these possibilities open, but consider this type of languages to presumably involve a covert cardinal head in the structure, adopting this structure on the left side just for simplicity. Okay, now let's go back to this definiteness versus indefiniteness that we were discussing. So remember that I was telling you that numeral constructions are widely considered as predicative expressions. So what do we mean by that? People have claimed that a numeral construction denotes a set with some individuals in it. So if you denote a set, then you can function as arguments of determiners. You can combine with a demonstrative, you can combine with a definite article. There shouldn't be any problem with that. And also you can occupy the predicate position within a sentence, like the first gift that I received this year was 2 books. 2 books is like the predicate position here, which requires set denotation. So everything seems to be working fine with respect to this widely accepted view of numeral constructions. And in fact, the idea is that when there is no determiner accompanying numeral construction, if you just use them in bare form, like 3 students, then the idea is that they are by default interpreted existentially as an indefinite. And existential type shifting comes with scopal ambiguities like that. So for example, here 3 students are not standing, but 3 are, means that there are 3 students such that they are not standing, and there are also 3 other students such that they are standing. So this is only possible with indefinites, like the scopal ambiguity possibilities. So Jiang has claimed that numeral constructions can freely occupy an argument position. They don't need an overt determiner to accompany them, even in those languages that strictly ban the occurrence of a bare nominal argument. So French is like that. In French, a bare noun can never occupy an argument position. It has to be accompanied by some sort of article. And even in these languages as well, determiners or articuleless numeral constructions only yield indefiniteness. So there's an example here in 19 for like showing that a numeral construction always would have to be used with a definite article or a demonstrative if you want to use them as definite expression. So to understand the inherent indefiniteness of numeral constructions, let's focus on articleless languages first. Like Turkish, for example, is articleless, right? So what happens is that we use our bare nouns without any article in argument positions. Here is in the subject position, çocuk, and here's in the object position, kitap, and I'm not considering case marking as an article here, so I'm considering still case marked nouns as bare nouns, okay? So in fact, when we use bare nouns in argument positions, the only interpretation that is available for them is a definite one. So if I say çocuk kitabı okudu, the translation to English is in fact the child read the book, not a child is reading a book. So a bare noun is only interpreted as a definite expression, and the assumption is that this happens through this covert iota type shifting. So the article, the one in English, or the covert iota operator, what do? They take a set and return a unique or a maximal entity within that set, if there is any. The covert iota, by the way, is taken as a type shifting operator, and it's going to be crucial for us. It's not like a covert definite article. Let me show you the difference. So what the which denotes is like, which is a singular noun. It denotes an atomic property. And if there is only one member in it, then the returns that member as its output. But with a covert type shifting mechanism, as in Turkish, you just take the singular form of the noun, apply some sort of shifting operation to it, which doesn't have space in the syntax, which is not inserted under the determiner head. It just happens in interpretation, and then you get the same result as in English. And this is what happens with the plural version of the noun. You have like your definite article or iota type shifting operation just takes out the maximal entity, maximal plurality within the set denoted by the plural. So covert type shifting is considered to be unavailable in languages that have an overt definite article. So the idea is that if a language has an overt definite article, it would require the use of that article rather than applying the covert type shifting that would do the same job as the overt one. And this is considered to be for reasons of economy and perhaps to disambiguate the meanings that are available to bare nouns, right? So the blocking principle, this is called the blocking principle, and it seems to be doing its job in languages like French and English. We know that numeral constructions would always need this overt determiner or a demonstrative, which is also overt, for a definite interpretation. So a numeral construction without these articles would not be able to be interpreted as a definite description. And in articleless languages, like take Mandarin and Russian, for example, the picture is surprisingly similar because remember when we said çocuk kitabı okudu, we know that the bare nouns only are interpreted as definite descriptions, but for some reason, if you look at Mandarin and Russian numeral constructions, although you would expect the iota type shifting to be available for them because there is no overt definite article that would block it, still these languages require then alternative overt markers like demonstratives for their numeral constructions to be definite descriptions. So this is Russian example. Ivan bought 5 dogs and 5 cats. To be able to say these 5 cats are very expensive or the 5 cats are very expensive, in order to be able to, be referred to those 5 dogs that have been introduced in the first sentence, you need to have a demonstrative. Dropping the demonstrative is not possible. So I'm going to just skip this slide. So the idea is that why the problem is that it's unclear why iota as a covert operator is not applicable to numeral constructions, although this operator is available to bare now. So what happens when we add a numeral to our phrase, to our nominal phrase? So, but Turkish now, going back to Turkish, is more puzzling because now we have this numeral constructions with tane and the one without tane. The one without tane is just like numeral constructions of of Russian or Mandarin. They require a demonstrative to be able to behave like a definite description. And if you don't have a demonstrative accompanying it, then it would just be an indefinite expression. But numeral constructions with tane are ambiguous. They can be both definite and indefinite if they are not accompanied by a demonstrative. So this makes this picture, cross-linguistic picture, even more puzzling. Okay, so about indefinites. So just a general introduction, just like general overview of them. Indefinites differ from regular quantificational elements in that they have unusual scope behavior. They take wide scope in unexpected contexts, like unlike a universal quantifier, every or her, for example. Right. So a quick example directly from Turkish. So, for example, if we say öğrencilerin tam olarak yarısı 2 tane kitaba yorum yazdı. So here we have an ambiguity, scope ambiguity. It can either mean, exactly half of the students are such that they wrote comments on 2 books. Or alternatively, we can interpret this as there are 2 specific books such that exactly half of the students wrote comments on them. There is also a distributive reading with the wide scope reading, but like overall, there is a scope ambiguity with indefinites here. And this is also the case with both forms of numeral constructions, regardless the presence or absence of time. When it comes to exceptional scope, here is an example that shows this. So, eğer 2 tane projem seçilirse ödenek alabileceğim. So here, according to my consultants, the number is like 20. The judgment-seeking tasks show that regardless of tane and like whether you have tane or not, there are 2 interpretations available for such a sentence. So in one case, the numeral construction or the indefinite expression takes narrow scope with respect to an island meaning here the antecedent of the conditional clause, this part. So the interpretation where there's a narrow scope interpretation for the indefinite is as follows. It is enough that any 2 of my projects are selected for me to receive funding. So any 2 projects are fine. And there's also this other interpretation where the numeral construction, or indefinite, in other words, would take wide scope above, outside of the conditional. And in that case, it would be interpreted as there are two specific projects of mine, and they need to be collectively selected for me to receive funding. So this is like a general behavior of indefinite cross-linguistically, the fact that it can take outside of a conditional, like an island, like a conditional. Because if you replace this with her projem, then you would see that this wide scope interpretation is not going to be available for them. So the point of this discussion is to show you that numeral constructions are indefinite in Turkish, and this is regardless of tane, whether tane is there or not. And when it comes to the contrast in terms of definiteness, let's remember the example that I showed you at the beginning. Here in 30, we have seen that I'm introducing 3 female nurses in the first sentence, and in the follow-up sentence, I'm trying to refer to these 3 women and talk about them. And I can only do this if I use a demonstrative, regardless you have tane or not. But if I don't have tane, I can still refer to these 3 nurses. But if I have tane, I wouldn't be able to do that. The interpretation is forced in a way that I'm talking about 3 different women here, not the ones that were killed and not the ones that I mentioned earlier. So, in a nutshell, while numeral constructions in Turkish, regardless of tane, are indefinite, when we have tane, so when we look at the definite interpretation, we see a contrast. When you don't have tane, they can be definite, and this goes against the cross-linguistic picture that we observe with Russian, Mandarin, and Hindi, for example. So there are other examples that I'm showing this definiteness contrast between the two. So I'm just going to skip them, but we can come back to them in the question answer period. These are other diagnostics showing the contrast. Now I would like to jump to the analysis directly. So how do we account for the exceptional behavior of Turkish numeral constructions, and how do we account for this favor of numeral constructions cross-linguistically for indefiniteness over definiteness? So Jiang has observed this cross-linguistic fact earlier. The observation about Turkish is my addition. So Jiang has claimed that numeral constructions have a distinct source to form arguments from bare nouns. So numerals, in her view, have a lexical variant which has a choice function variable in the sense of Reinhardt. So this choice function analysis is an analysis for indefiniteness in general, and I will show you what I mean by that soon. So this theory, just skipping the details overall, accounts for this exceptional scope behavior of indefinites, scope ambiguity readings that are available to indefinites, and everything that is considered specific to indefinites is taken care of in this analysis. So the idea, my claim is that the source of indefiniteness in numeral constructions, differently from Jiang, is not the numeral, but is the cardinal head. So numeral constructions are cross-linguistically argumental. They're indefinite expressions. They're E-type expressions because this cardinal head brings with it a choice function. So let's now see what a choice function does. So remember earlier people claimed that a numeral construction denotes a set, right? When we say 2 books, we have a set with pluralities in it, and each plurality has 2 atomic parts in it. So the choice function, what it does is that it takes this set and return a random member of that set. The idea is that the identity of this member, the plurality that has been chosen by this function, is not salient in the context. So it might be familiar to the speaker. Speaker might know about the identity of this individual, but it might not be available to the addressee. If both the addressee and the speaker knows about the identity of this individual, then it would have to be a definite description, right? So it would be a familiar, unique entity. But the idea about indefiniteness is that this is either not known by anybody, or just the speaker knows about the identity. So what the choice function does is just choose a random member from the set, but like we don't know which one. Okay. Eventually the choice function variable requires some sort of existential closure during the interpretation, and this is what makes them look like indefinite. This is what gives them an indefinite behavior. Okay, so going back to numeral constructions again, Dayal claimed that they type shift so they're not predicative, as opposed to what people have claimed. In fact, they have an argumental type. They're more like quantifiers in her view. And then they type shift to a predicative type to accept the notation only when the structure requires it. So when does the structure can require a predicative meaning of numeral constructions? So when you merge a numeral construction with an article, for example, articles always require a predicate as their arguments. Or if you put the numeral construction in the predicate position of a sentence, then that position would require a predicative meaning of the numeral construction. Then the idea is that whenever you use the numeral construction in those positions, then there's this type shifting mechanism that turns them into a predicative denotation. And this mechanism is called ident type shifting due to Partey's work. What does ident do? It takes an E-type expression that has been created by a numeral construction and puts its denotation back into a set now, so that it becomes an ET-type expression again. So this is the generalized structure that I'm arguing for numeral constructions. So cross-linguistically, regardless of the structural variations that we might observe here, numeral constructions are E-type expressions. They denote individuals. They do not denote sets. And when they want to merge with a definite article or a demonstrative or any type of a determiner, then they have to be turned into a predicative denotation. And this is done through the ident type shifting, and then they can combine with them. But iota type shifting would not be available, especially if the language doesn't have a definite article, an overt one, like take Russian, for example, because iota type shifting would not be motivated, because there would be no motivation for the ident type shifting to be activated here, because type shiftings are considered to be activated only when there is a type mismatch. Since you already have an E-type cardinal phrase here, and when you merge this with a verb, there will be no type mismatch. And that's why the ident type shifting, which would turn this into a predicate, is not going to be motivated. Therefore, iota type shifting, which also requires the predicative meaning of the element that it is operating on, cannot apply. Therefore, in articulous languages, the only way for us to observe numeral constructions to be used as definite expressions is through other overt markers that are available in the language, and which the perfect candidate for that is demonstratives. Okay. So this is just to show you in more detail how to derive this interpretation. So I'm just going to skip this. But the idea is that I will directly take you to Turkish. So in Turkish numeral constructions, we said that when you have tane, it's like regular numeral constructions in just like numeral constructions in other languages. But when you don't have tane, we have this ambiguity, right? They can be definite. So my claim is that Turkish numeral constructions, when they have tane, they continue to retain this general construct in cardinal semantics. So they are E-type expressions eventually. They have a choice function with them. So tane brings a choice function with it, and the result is an individual type expression. But when you don't have a tane, but instead when you have the covert form of the cardinal head, then my claim is that the choice function perhaps has been severed from this head, or perhaps this cardinal head has never gained any indefinite behavior through choice function. Therefore, it actually results in a predicative denotation directly. So here is the contrast between the two structures. When you have tane, your numeral construction is an E-type expression because tane has a choice function on it. But when you have a covert cardinal head, there is no choice function, and as a result, the cardinal phrase has an ET-type denotation, is predicative. So while a numeral construction with tane can only combine with demonstrative, and this would be possible through the ident type shifting, iota type shifting would not be motivated with it. But since the version without tane is already predicative, it's free in combining with whatever it wants. Like it can be demonstrative, or it can be iota type shifting, or association with the choice function at this level. So in other words, our numeral constructions, the ones that don't have tane, are enriched in meaning. So they can allow type shifting of any sort, and also can combine with a demonstrative. But numeral constructions with tane are more restricted in that sense, because tane brings with it this indefinite source. So I would like to end here. I'm not going to go into the details of Farsi and Armenian. I just would like to show you, I just would like to mention that Farsi is special because Farsi is also an article-less optional classifier language. And it's just a mirror image of Turkish though. So if you go back to Turkish structure, their covert cardinal head is the one that comes with an indefinite force showing this type of behavior, while their overt, the cardinal form, which is ta, language contact, we can say, ta is the one that allows both definite and indefinite interpretations in Farsi. So this shows us that which form of the cardinal head brings this indefinite force has nothing to do with whether your cardinal head is overt or covert. So it's just like for some reason Farsi happened to have the mirror image pattern in its numeral constructions. So I just would like to end here, and I'm ready for all the questions now. I would like to see here, so I think you cannot see my screen at this point. Can you?
We can currently still see your screen.
But do you see my slides?
Not your slide, but we can see your not desktop, but
Yeah.
the meets.
You can see the meets. Okay. I'm just gonna stop presenting for now because I would like to see your faces when you ask me questions, and we can reshare it if it's necessary. Okay.
Okay. If anyone has any questions, they can ask.
Deren, I guess, has a question.
Hello.
Oh.
Hello, I'm Deren. I'm a 10th grader. Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you for the beautiful and beneficial presentation. It was perfect. I'm glad to have been here. In addition, I would like to ask for some advice about my biggest dream and aim, which is studying at Harvard in linguistic department. What would be your advice?
Well, I don't know. It's a very hard question. So what level are you right now? I'm sorry. I couldn't catch that. Huh?
I'm 10th grader.
10th grader, meaning you're a high school student, or
Yeah.
Oh, I see. You have a lot of way yet to go there. Well, are you interested in linguistics?
So much.
Then you first need to, I guess, study, do your undergraduate degree first, and then at that time, form some connections. You might need to do some master's degree as well, get a master's degree as well before applying here, because this only has a PhD program, and that would require an extensive level of linguistics knowledge. So I would recommend first focus on your university exam, and then you will do some masters, and then you can consider linguistics. But did you want to study at Harvard as an undergraduate student?
Yes.
Well, okay, that is out of my league because I don't, I'm not very much, I don't have much knowledge about how the admissions happen here. All I know is that it's not like our system in Turkey. There is no national exam. You still need to take an exam, but that's just only part of it. And you have to, they also look at the social side of the student a lot, like whether there's any sports activities where they're very successful at, or like it could be musical talents, etc. Or sometimes they look at whether students attended Olympiads in different level, like different branches of science, right? So like it requires like a good preparation and application preparation. And for that, you need some advice from your school. Some schools are good at that. They send their students to Ivy League schools here. So the only thing that I can do is to give you that level of information, and I don't have much more than that. But
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
If anyone wants to ask another question, they can also write it in the chat. I also have a question while we wait. I can ask that. So what about the rules for the Turkish word adet? Not tane, but I wanted to ask if this rule can also be applied to the word adet as well.
So adet, I didn't include it in my paper, but I footnoted it. It seems to behave like tane. It's just more restricted in that we don't use it with human denoting nouns, right? It's more like for objects, or we don't even use them for animals unless you consider your animals some sort of, I don't know, something that you own. So yes, I think it could be extended, Tane's analysis could be extended to adet, but adets would have some presuppositions, presupposing like requiring to combine with nouns that do not denote humans or animate entities, most likely, but in a more restricted way than Tane, so I would say.
Thank you. I also have another question. This one's a bit longer. So we talked about like singular kind of reference, but if you're referencing to a subcategory, you mentioned like dog, but doesn't that kind of make it into like a plural? Because yeah, we're mentioning the dog, but we are also like thinking about bulldogs, the other kind of dogs, golden retrievers. But like I know it depends on the context of the sentence. Like if we say look at that dog, that means it's just a dog, that dog. But doesn't that kind of make it like a little bit ambiguous?
That's a very good question. So this is based on Dayal's work, right? Well, how Dayal defined, like tackled with this plurality intuition that you have. She said that it is conceptually, yes, all kinds are conceptually plural. When you talk about the dog kind, you cannot escape from plurality, right? Because you have to consider that either you're thinking about object level dogs. When you say the dog kind, you cannot just conceptualize over a single dog. We have to have pluralities of dogs. Or when you talk about subkinds of dogs like bulldog or like poodle, etc., you're still having some pluralities of subkinds. No kind has just a single subkind, right? But this is a conceptual level of plurality, something that is not reflected in the grammar. So grammar plurality is a little bit more different than that. So the fact that you can say, for example, cats attack each other requires grammatical plurality as well as conceptual plurality. But the fact that we cannot say cat attacks each other or kedi birbirine saldırır, we cannot say this, shows us that these nouns are still lacking that grammatical level plurality, despite that they have the conceptual level one. So it all matters how you map your conceptual level intuitions into your language's grammar. So Mandarin type languages have count mass distinction conceptually, right? They know that cat is a count noun, while water is a mass noun, but it's just their grammar doesn't reflect that, doesn't distinguish that. That's when they say these languages don't have count mass distinction, people are talking about the grammar of the language, not what is happening in the conceptual world of the speakers of that language. So what you're pointing out is that distinction. But this is a very good question.
Thank you for answering that. It made more clear sense to me.
Okay, I'm glad.
We have another question.
Yes. At first, I would like to thank you for your it was an amazing presentation, and we would like to thank you for that. My question is about the numeral classifiers. I mean, how do they interact with definiteness marking in languages that use them? I was wondering about that.
So you mean like Mandarin type languages? What happens with them? When you say numeral classifiers, do you refer to them?
Yes.
So just to repeat your question, do you mean how does definiteness work in languages like Mandarin in terms of numeral constructions? Correct me if
In terms of definiteness marking and the numeral classifiers. So, okay, if I should clear it up, how do the numeral classifiers interact with definiteness marking, but in the exact languages that use them, that use the definiteness?
You mean the
And also-
word definite article?
Yes.
So far there is one language that uses classifiers. One language that I mentioned in the paper that uses classifiers obligatory and also have a definite article. It's called Yi. It's also a Far Eastern language, an Asian language, but the idea that is similar to what happens in English, for example. So their numeral constructions are also indefinite. They're individual type expressions. And when you merge it with an overt definite article, then what happens is that the numeral construction is first turned into a predicative type. And I showed that this happens through what we call ident type shifting. What ident does is that taking an E-type expression and put its denotation within a set. And once you put its denotation, what it refers to, into a set, then it becomes a predicative expression. And once you do this shifting, then it can merge with a definite article of the language, right? Because definite articles require as their argument predicative type expressions. So they need to combine with a set to be able to take out the individual within that set if there is a unique one, right? To be able to, for example, when you say the book, like book itself has to have a single member in it, a unique member in it, so that the definite article can remove that entity from that set and return it to us. So when you say the book, you refer to that unique individual that was originally within that set, right? So similarly, a numeral construction does the same thing. Your numeral construction is just like comes as already referring to an individual. So it's not a set anymore, in my view, in my claim. And so when I say, for example, 3 books, I'm referring to a plurality, a unique, so a single plurality, which is A plus B plus C, let's say. It's just like this individual has been chosen by the choice function, but it's like maybe I know it as a speaker, but my addressee doesn't necessarily know which plurality I'm talking about. This is what makes it indefinite. But the thing is that if I want to merge it with the definite article, let's say this is Yi, or let's say this is English, those languages have definite articles, right? So what it does is once you put this numeral construction as a sister to the definite determiner in the structure necessitates or initiates or triggers that ident type shifting, turns it into a set denotation puts the denotation of the numeral construction in the set again, so that a definite article check whether it is a unique member, and then if so, it can return it. So it becomes familiar to both the speaker and the interlocutor then. So this is kind of like your question is independent of numeral classifiers. Whether the language has classifier or not doesn't matter. Universally, the idea is that the numeral constructions are all E-type expressions, and merging with a word definite article would initiate that shift to predicative interpretation so that you can combine it with that. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much. I understood it really well. Thank you.
I'm glad, yeah. So are you all students here? I'm sorry, Ilayda, I cannot hear.
We're all students here.
That's great. So I actually didn't know my audience.
Oh,
I'm hearing back my own voice. What?
is it good now? The audio.
Yeah, I don't hear it anymore. So I didn't know my audience. I didn't know your background, but I still tried to make it as clear as possible. I hope this was clear. I don't expect it to be 100% clear, but I hope you got the general idea. How much semantics did you know?
Well, we are not all of us are from the third grade of linguistics department in Mayıs University, and not all of us are from Mayıs University. We have a variety of students. But since we are in this community, we are really intertwined with it. So some of us know a lot more than others, but I would say
Okay.
average. I think.
So if you hadn't focused on my formalism, so let's imagine you don't know any semantics. If you
Okay.
hadn't focused on my formalisms, if you just followed me, you should be fine. And I hope this happens.
It was really clear. I really like semantics, but I've not taken any lessons for it because I'm a second grade student.
I see.
But it was really clear with your examples and all.
Okay, I'm glad.
If
If
we
you
have,
got something out of it, that's great. Yeah.
yeah. If we have any more questions, do we have any more questions? You can raise your hand.
Rosa.
Okay.
Charm.
Yes. You can speak.
Hello. First of all, I'd like to thank the presentation. That was awesome for the information you gave us today. I have a question, and I think my voice echoes. Let me check my microphone.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to understand, but it wasn't that bad either. Charm.
Düzeldi mi hocam? Galiba evet, şu an eko
Evet,
gitmiş.
daha iyi.
Ben sorumu not almıştım hocam. Benim sorum
Hı hı.
şu. Are there any typological patterns regarding the expression of definiteness in languages with complex numeral systems and high cardinality counts?
So, are there any typological, sorry, can you repeat that part?
Obviously. Are there any typological patterns regarding the expression of definiteness in languages with complex numeral systems and high cardinality counts?
Definiteness, sorry, what's that word?
Definiteness, sorry.
Definiteness. So for complex numerals, no, they're supposed to be the same. Except that I would say as the number grows, like when you start talking about big numbers, then definiteness by itself gets harder, but that's an independent thing because now you're focusing on the big number And when you focus on the number of the things that you're talking about rather than their identity, then it becomes more and more indefinite like. So I would say that when you talk about like over 1,000 people or over 1,000 books, it's harder to refer to them as definite expressions then rather than that you want to refer to them as indefinite, because you're focusing on the number instead of the identity of the entities. But this is independent of the claims that I've been making here. This will be more like a cognitive connection there with like why high numerals do not let us talk about the identity easier than lower numbers. So when it comes to complex numerals, I would consider like bigger numbers perhaps. That's how I can perhaps answer this. If you have something else in mind, I'm happy to talk about that as well.
I'm sorry, I have a little bit of connection problems.
You couldn't hear me?
Yeah, no, I could hear you, but it's connect. Thank you. I have no any more questions. I got that real good.
I'm glad. Look, are you a student?
Yes.
Madison
Yes,
University?
I'm a student in Madison University.
Linguistics, right?
Third grade, yes.
Yeah. What are you interested in? I mean, in general, what kind of work do you do there, or what courses are you more attracted to?
Okay. How could I say that? Okay.
This is a general question to everyone.
I have a family of linguists. My mother was a linguist. My aunt was a linguist. I mean, she was a German teacher, but usually my family is into the language. So I used to study politics, and then I drop out in the second grade, and then started to study linguistics because I don't know, I usually fascinated by the language itself. So that's why I'm trying to choose this department.
Great. Good luck. Good luck with that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And I would like to say that again. Thank you for the presentation. That was really awesome.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
If anyone else, any other questions?
I guess no.
Yes, no as well. I would like to thank you all again for coming to our presentation, to give us your presentation. It was really lovely. And to answer your question, your previous question of what we are interested in, I'm actually really interested in, again, semantics, but I'm really interested in basically how language can persuade people with its meaning. Like, I guess it's kind of more falls into the semantics category, but just how language is used to, in propaganda text or in manipulation techniques.
Yeah, I see. That's more like pragmatics, I would say. So yeah,
it's kind of both. I mean, I haven't really studied it that much, but it just really fascinates me how a single sentence can change the person's mind. So it really fascinates me in that way.
I see that. Yeah, that sounds like an interesting way of looking at it. Well, it was great to be invited by you. I'm glad to see that everyone is a student here. That's great. You don't expect students to organize such events, not that much. It doesn't happen everywhere. So that's definitely a gem. So I wish you all good luck. And, if you have any questions, if you want to reach out to me for other stuff, please feel free to do so. And goodbye, everyone. Have a good evening.
As we have do you have a question, Dennis?
Oh, there's another question. I'm sorry. I thought this was
No,
over.
sorry. I pressed the wrong one.
Okay, okay, it's fine, it's fine.
Okay, so
Okay, then I guess. Thank you
well, I
again.
said goodbye, but if you know. Anyway, okay. Great. Herkese iyi akşamlar. Teşekkür ederim.
Thank you all for coming again. Have a lovely night.
My pleasure. Bye.